What's going on, everyone? Jerry here from The Quartering, and we are just 17 days away from the drop of Rise of the Skywalker. Now, I will probably see this film. Will I pay to see this film? No, I will not. It's not necessarily that I've seen anything that is so off-putting, for example, like with the marketing of The Last Jedi, where I just refuse to give the company money up front because they attack the fandom. It's more so like I don't want to reward Disney for completely mailing it in. And that's the only way I can really describe the effort they've put together with the recent trilogy. And before we get into the panic mode, a quick word from this video's sponsor. Huge shout out to this video's sponsor, NordVPN. This is probably the easiest sponsor shout out I ever have to do because NordVPN is something I personally use and have been using for almost a year now. NordVPN was selected as Best VPN from the Best VPN Awards for 2019. It was also the only VPN to get all green checks from PC Magazine. You get unlimited bandwidth, you get super fast servers, you get no data logging, you also get a 30-day money-back guarantee. Now that we're in the holiday season, NordVPN has put together a super special offer, which includes 4 months free when you sign up for a 3-year plan, plus 40 months of Nord Locker premium subscription, also free, only when you use the link in my pinned comment and the description below. Protect your PC today with NordVPN. Now, this article is on Bounding into Comics via Overlord DVD. Now, if that name sounds familiar with you, it's probably because you've heard some sort of Star Wars leaks in the last month or two. Now, I tend to take his leaks, his sources, with a grain of salt. That isn't to take a shot at him because I think his videos are very entertaining. It's just they're all over the place. And look, I've had sources before that were just dead wrong. I've had sources that were right on. He's probably got the same combination of the two. This recent one, boy, it's spicy. Now, we've already heard the story of basically walkouts happening during screenings, and that seems plausible to me, as only hardcore Star Wars fans could know the actual horror that Disney has laid upon the Star Wars franchise. If you look at the essential, if you look at the 30,000-foot view of most of the most recent films, they're just rehashes. They take an old character to suck you in, and then they degrade them, like they did with Luke Skywalker and others, and then they try to usher somebody else in their place. So far, that hasn't worked. If it had worked, they would have stopped dragging out the corpses of Star Wars past to get you in the cinema. We see in this one, they're going to rely heavily on characters like C-3PO, Chewbacca, and others, and of course the literal corpse of Princess Leia to get you in. Look at all the media we've seen. It's actually really disgusting. A lot of what Star Wars has done with the marketing is made ploys, or they build a lot of their commercials, maybe not everyone, but several of them, around an old character that they have no idea how to write for. They don't really have any idea how to write for new ones either, but they bring them in to suck you in because, like, oh, I love Princess Leia, and she's CGI. She's literally dead. To me, it's a disgrace when films do this type of thing. Now, if somebody passes during filming or something like that, okay. I don't view it as, oh, this is just to honor her. I don't buy that. I think that's Disney knows that it's imperative to have these old characters in the films because people that enjoyed the original trilogy, or God forbid the prequel trilogy, they don't have a lot of interest in these. You know, only the casual Star Wars fans are interested in them. But let's be very clear before all my detractors whine about how, well, Star Wars made money. Get wrecked, hater. I absolutely, unequivocally, just like with Captain Marvel, expect Star Wars Rise of the Skywalker to rake in $1 billion at the cinema. What they seem to forget, though, is that $1 billion nowadays in modern cinema, when you're talking about a film as big as Star Wars, ain't that big a deal. When they can sleepwalk their way to 500 million in the international market, the Western market gets ignored because they know that these idiots are just going to pay their $15 and see the film anyway. If they didn't believe that, they would not have released Solo, a Star Wars story. A new rumor about Star Wars Rise of the Skywalker test screening describes the film as, quote, all over the place and confusing. The rumor comes from YouTuber Overlord DVD, who received the information from a source that he describes as to have knowledge of the production. Now, I will say this about him. If he wasn't at all right about these things, it's curious how the shills seem to go after him directly and try to debunk his sources. It's like if he was so wildly off base, then why would anyone even address them? It was like, why did people so aggressively come after me when I made fun of She-Ra? I was a little on the nose. Now, he explains why his source described the film as all over the place and confusing. The narrative connection of events is threadbare. Things unfold because they have to, not because they logically should. The story seems to largely consist of multiple MacGuffin-style modular plots, achievements moving from one planet set piece to the next. In other words, the thing is more like a video game than a story. He goes on to say, my source was adamant they would not recommend that friends go see Rise of the Skywalker. He continues, I have confirmation from my source of just how bad things are behind the scenes. A version of the film was locked in as the final version, and then a day or two later, another version was locked in as final. Now, I don't have in-depth knowledge of how they make movies. I'm going to guess that there are normally final cuts and then revisions and then several final cuts. I'm assuming that's normal. Now, if Rise of the Skywalker had an inordinate amount of them, that would be interesting. He continues to say, this source reportedly has knowledge of at least 5 different versions of the film to exist, and the source verifies that in the last 2 weeks, 2 new versions have been finalized. See, that's the curious thing. With the film set to release, in fact, people have already screened the film. They had that Make-A-Wish kid who already saw the movie. So, I mean, are they really still working on it feverishly this late into the game? That would be a horrible sign. He also reveals new leaks about the film. My source confirms that the last sign of the film, and this is going to be the real, this is the proof, right? We're going to know everything about his sources if this is true, because this is very specific. The idea that the film has been cut and recut and that people didn't like the film isn't that surprising. But this one is pretty specific. My source confirms that the last sign of the film is, quote, I am Rey Skywalker. Rey evidently says this line to another woman. He continues, my source confirms that throughout Rise of the Skywalker, they use the name Skywalker synonymously with Jedi, so that Jedi is essentially replaced with Skywalker by the end. I could see them doing that. From here, he outlines a number of scenes that have been rumored to details of whether or not to be in the final cut. He first notes that rumored scenes of Luke training Leia as a Jedi is no longer in the film. Well, that would make sense, because why not remove any doubt that Rey is a Mary Sue? I mean, why take any time to build her character when you can just say it is or she is because woman? He explains why he believes the scene was cut. This is a common theme throughout the cut of the movie. I suspect that Disney is aware of how much fans hated these plot points, and Disney's solution to the problem seemed to have not be fix the plot points, but rather to cut any attempted explanations of the plot points, hoping that the film will be loud enough and confusing enough to breeze over the idiotic plot holes without explaining them. While the scene with Luke training Leia has been cut, he does indicate that Leia gives Rey a lightsaber. I'm assuming they're just laying around everywhere. He then details a scene between Kylo Ren and Emperor Palpatine. According to my source, Kylo stumbles across Palpatine fairly early in this cut. Kylo is looking for something called the Wayfinder. These are very specific, so we're going to know. And again, I don't really consider these spoilers because, I mean, the chances of these all being 100% correct seem slim. The Wayfinder, if we can even call it that, seems to be some powerful MacGuffin that several characters are after. It's like a Sith holocron, but not red. And it's a key to finding the Sith dagger that was used to kill Rey's parents, that has Sith runes on in it that C-3PO will have to get his memory wiped to decode. And that he does that, Sith dagger conveniently will lead Rey to another planet, and so on until she finds Palpatine. We all know she will. Turns out that Emperor has been hiding out in unknown regions of the and amassing a fleet of Imperial Star Destroyers. He wants Kylo to join him, but the ultimate plan is to also bring Rey into the fold. Now, it's going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out, because we're already seeing some long-range box office numbers. And like I said, the film's going to make $1 billion. Make no mistake about it. Box office tracking website Box Office Pro predicts Star Wars Rise of the Skywalker will have an opening weekend between 185 and 225 million. That's a big gap. They also predict the film will have a domestic gross total between 500 million and 750 million. They are definitely giving themselves some leeway, as both are pretty large ranges. Box Office Pro explains why the wide gap in their low and high numbers. When discussing potential grosses of this magnitude, it's important to note that expectations are volatile on a scaled level and highly depend on the ultimate reception and sentiment. They do predict, quote, the average projection across all models indicates that this will be another major blockbuster for the franchise. They back up the statement saying early ticket sales are remarkably strong, with similarities to Rogue One and The Last Jedi's upfront demanding on point with our expectations. The thing with the Star Wars fandom, there's a section of it that, bless their hearts, just want to see it on opening day, and those people are never going away, all right? Star Wars and Disney is really, really going to have to abuse them for them to go away. The predictions fall in line with Star Wars The Last Jedi. Ryan Roundhead Johnson had made an opening gross of $220 million. It will go on to earn $620 million at the domestic box office. If you compare it to Force Awakens, the prediction numbers are significantly down. Force Awakens had opening gross of $247 million. It would go on to earn $936 million at the domestic. Outside the sequel trilogy, the predictions are higher than Rogue One, and it's much higher than Solo, A Star Wars Story, had an $84 million box office opening. What might be interesting to note is that while Box Office predicts somewhat similar box office grosses of The Last Jedi, they note that their prediction on the third film in the Star Wars trilogy usually performs stronger than the second in the trilogy. That's true. Usually the first and the third do the best. That's just basically the way it goes. So it's going to be interesting to see how this film comes together. I mean, not that I would ever recommend anyone purchase a ticket to see Cats or something else and then watch Star Wars Rise of the Skywalker, but I know that some of you will be doing that, and I think that I disavow, obviously. I hope you enjoyed this video, though. We'll talk to you again real soon.